So why Finney? Um, it's been a year of expansion, and there have been some pain points. I think that focusing a little bit on the pain points, it helps people understand, especially if they've mined over the last year. And one of the biggest pain points, one of the political battles with inside Bittensor has been around the UID count. How many miners can we sustain at any one time? And there's been a number of limitations around that because we run UMA consensus, and UMA consensus is limited to 4,096 UIDs based on the size of the chain, what we could sustain in the blockchain at any moment in time. So Finney was designed to allow us to scale beyond that UID set, horizontally and vertically, as you'll see in a bit. But the major push for Finney was not to release two of the major updates we're going to talk about right here: subnets and delegation. These are the two add-ons. The main thing for Finney was increasing Bittensor's degrees of freedom inside of the Web3 ecosystem, so that we could integrate into the Polkadot world, so that Tau could be moved across borders. Finney is about Bittensor's freedom in Web3. Freedom from centralized control, so that we're no longer fully controlling the validator set, and we're able to push the protocol outside of the hands of the foundation and into the web beyond any individual's control. Hitting into Polkadot, getting in that relay chain position, that parachain, is number one step for that. Moving beyond a single validator set that we control as a foundation means that there's no third parties. It means that the token can be moved across borders between chains without anybody getting in the way. And these are really important because if we can't allow Tau to be liquid, if people can't choose how they want to use the token, it no longer has market value inside the Web3 ecosystem. And it's that market that we're using to drive the creation of machine intelligence. So that's Finney, but where we are today is not quite the Finney that is connected into a decentralized ecosystem of Polkadot. Today, we're just launching Rococo, Finney Rococo, which is a bit of a test network. And we did it early so that people would have time to prepare. So people have time to prepare for these updates to the chain. They know how to use them, and they won't be sort of caught unsurprised. They won't be surprised when we launch the chain in a month or so. So what are the major updates? And I think people are really excited about them. So the number one is subnetworks. We've been talking about this for a really long time. Subnetworks are basically just running multiple Nakamoto consensuses across the same chain. So we can scale horizontally so that we have multiple networks. And we've expanded we've really increased the speed at which we can run UMA consensus, allowing us to possibly scale up to 64,000 size networks. So we will be able to have 4,000 scale networks, multiples of them, plus even 16K networks across the chain running concurrently. This will mean that the inflation in Bittensor is split between these networks, and this will affect the incentive that each miner gets. So there'll be a hard task of selecting where that inflation will go and into which networks. A little bit on that later when we get to delegation. With subnetworks, we also introduced something called Subnetwork Connect, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this, maybe even demo it partially at the end of the call, where we have networks that are connected to each other. So Nakamoto 4K was the original network that many of you are familiar with. We're going to open a Nakamoto registration network with 16K UIDs that allows people to prove that they're worthy of entering the 4K Nakamoto by performing well on the registration network. It's a hierarchical aspect, similar to promotion or relegation network, or promotion or relegation league. Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, cool. So we can have a Nakamoto registration network with up to 16K UIDs. This means that we're going to really reduce the difficulty in proof of work, which was over the last year was all about proof of work. It was who could push out the other users with that difficulty, and less of a focus on was their miner actually performing well from a machine learning perspective. And that obviously those two things were interplayed, but by filtering UIDs first with the Nakamoto Registration Network, we'll be able to reduce the demand on POW and hopefully expand the machine learning side of the network. Subnetworks also allow us to build hierarchies where we're working with different modalities. This is a really exciting, innovation for what we're doing at Bittensor, because we're going to expand into different modality subnetworks. This is something that happened in Q1 or Q2. We'll open up an image network for Bittensor. But with Subnetwork Connect, what we can also do is connect those modalities, so we can have a text image network that requires understanding of both image and text. So we can push towards multimodality through the incentive mechanism, directly how people are registering to the network. So that's subnetworks. It's really exciting. And subnetworks are all about scale. It's about how can we scale Bittensor to more users, to more domains, and into multimodality AI. How can we really showcase that we're not just solving only a single problem with text, just around text, but working on problems that any client wanted to come and use Bittensor for? The way in which we'll select those modalities, we don't really know. Right now, we're just going to focus on the core ones: image to text and audio, and start there. But potentially, clients could come and ask for a time series network. I know there have been some people in the community that have asked specifically for that. It's really exciting for us to expand the AI research that we're doing in different dimensions of space within the industry. All right. So this is more about the AI side, about scaling. Finney is about core Web3 technology. How are we launching ourselves into the ecosystem? This is about scaling the compute power of the network. How can we build bigger networks and really truly become a neural internet? Delegation is our foray into autonomous organizations, the ability for people to band together and work in Bittensor as groups. So those that have used Bittensor before are pretty familiar with the cold key hotkey structure in Bittensor. We've expanded this very simply, and that allowing people to stake their funds to hotkeys that are not their own. This is totally trustless. So if you stake funds to a hotkey that's not your own, you won't lose access to those funds. You can always get them back. You just can't use them in validation, but the hotkey that you stake them to, owned by a particular other individual, by another cold key, can use them. And so we're making this distinction, or expanding the potential for people to move Tau in Bittensor, so that we can build hierarchies or clusters of individuals that then can group their power and use it inside of Bittensor. Over the last year, a lot of people have come to the realization that they needed 1024 Tau in order to be a validator. This is changing. We're no longer going to be picking a raw value for the validator cutoff. It's going to be based on the number of UIDs. It's going to be based on the stake of the validators. So we'll take probably the top 100 in Nakamoto 4K. So there'll be 100 validators. And so in order to validate inside Bittensor, or to participate in validation, you'll have to delegate stake to someone, or have a top 100 key. There's a number of reasons why we're doing this with delegation. So delegation is effectively a liquid democracy, where individuals can build organizations and move Tau around inside the ecosystem, and let that Tau be used to vote on things, especially the direction of the incentive flow, and inside Bittensor. So delegation is our first foray into what I would say is a liquid democracy. And it's also a way for us as a foundation to make revenue, as well as other groups of people inside the ecosystem to make revenue, because we've built in a flat rate of 18% as a take from the delegators. So if there's 100,000 Tau delegated to one particular hotkey from another individual, 18% of the emissions or the dividends from that stake, the 100,000 stake, will go to funding the organization. We hope that people will invest in the foundation so that we can continue work and hire engineers, but we've made it specifically so that there's competition for ourselves. Anybody can build, anybody can become a delegate, and anybody can nominate stake wherever they want, in any piece, in any splitting of that stake they want. So this really hopefully integrates a little bit of competition the beginnings of competition at the organizational scale for Bittensor. So delegation is about organization, and it's an on-ramp for us, for people, so that they can begin validating without having to run a miner. They can begin making dividends without running a miner. It's a funding mechanism for the foundation. And it's also a democratic tool. It's a way for people to build, to gather behind representatives and have those representatives work for them in order to make the Bittensor move the way that they want them to. So those are the two main, and it's a real shame that we missed the rest of these slides because they were quite informative. But the majority of the information about what we're doing here with Finney and the release is in this, and I can release the slides to people that want to take a look at them. So Finney is open, and to follow on with this presentation, I thought that it would be great to open Finney and give people the documentation to start playing with it. So you can use it if you're on your computer right now. You can connect to Finney, and why don't I just show people how that's done? So, so if you can see my screen, we're all good, and you're at my terminal here. Alec, please give me a thumbs up.
Yep, can see it.
Right. So developers out there, if you want to connect to Finney, you have to be on the Finney branch. So this is Finney right here. So you have to pull. You have to pull this branch from master with inside your Bittensor directory and reinstall it. So I recommend reinstalling with Python. And this will get you totally connected into everything that we're working with on Finney. So registration, these networks are open. So for instance, if we were to run a metagraph, you'll see there's 3 networks to choose from, 0, 1, and 2. Right now, these are just numbered, but they will be ASCII-based in the future. We'll actually have a monogram for them. So there's network 0, 1, and 2, and each one of these networks has about 4,000 UIDs in them each. So with Finney, just on the test network, we already have 3 times as many UIDs. And we want people to register into these networks right now and really, really test the shit out of what we've built. We want people to break what we've built on Finney. So we only have 1 UID. Now, this is maybe a little bit like those early days when there was only a couple of UIDs. And the first time we presented an open network on Bittensor, it was at 100 UIDs by the end of the call. So I highly doubt that will happen today. But there's a couple other things that I'd want to showcase here with the CLI that are open for people to do. So one of them is nomination. So you can nominate yourself to be someone who can accept funds through delegated of stake. And you simply need to call BT-CLI nominate, and then you need to share your address with people. So when we launch Finney on Kusama or Polkadot, we will show what foundation address people can use, and that'll be available within the code. So if people want to delegate stake to us, and so that we can take an 18% so to speak tax on the dividends, we'll be very, very glad for that, because we can use it to continue funding development. But if you want to build your own organization, delegating stake will be the beginning of how we move forward with building those organizations. So BT-CLI delegate is the other command, which you can call, and you simply pass. Let's see, list delegates. So as you can see, the key that I've nominated is here and can accept a delegation from other peers, other hotkeys and other cold keys. So it's important to remember that it's the cold key itself that is performing the delegation. Right now, we've fixed the take to just under 18%, so it's 17.9999%. And I'm sure there's people that have questions about exactly how that's going to play out. And the network's open, and so people are welcome to get on Finney and continue playing with it. We hope we do play with it and break it for us, honestly. And that's basically it. Though that showcases the two extra additions to the code base for now, and maybe we'll break to questions at this point now.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. Okay, Mike's asking, will validators be able to adjust the take? Not sure what you mean by that, Mike. Can I clarify a little bit?
Yeah, I know what he means. No, so we've fixed the take on purpose, and instead we want competition to occur at the level of awards that each of the delegates is accruing to their their delegators through validation. So if you have a hotkey that you've delegated to, and that miner is not actually validating correctly inside Bittensor, you'll see that affected in your returns as somebody delegating stake. So the fee is the same, fixed across the board. It's what the delegates can use that for. How they can use that stake that will make the difference between which pool you want to join.
Hey, when can we expect mainnet Finney launch? I think you probably expect it more towards end of Q1. Is the idea that small holders get a cut of the dividend awarded to a validator they delegate to? Yes, that's exactly right, that new guy. The idea is that your small TAO holders will get a cut of the dividend that the validator will be getting. Can a validator reject stake from? Oops, say again.
You'll get the proportion of that validator's dividends, which would reflect the amount of stake that you've staked into that validator. So, as an example, if there is a delegate with 100 stake from me, and that's it, then I should get 100% of the dividends that delegate is making, minus an 18% take. So they'll take 18% off the top. They'll take 18 tokens. Let's say they made 100 TAO. They'll take the first 18, and then the rest of the 82 will go directly to me. Yeah. Alice, you want to continue?
Yep. I thought the original plan was for individual businesses to build their own validators to access the network. In limiting validators to 100, are you also limiting the number of businesses to 100?
Well, we have a limitation that's based per network. So we can have some networks that have which have more or less validators. So it really depends on what the sub networks are working on and whether or not we want them to have larger validator sets or smaller validator sets. Is something we can pick specifically for each network.
Yeah, I'm still waiting. Is there's going to go there? But you mentioned there's a Kusama-based mainnet. I could probably answer this one. So, not sure if anybody's kind of been keeping up with the Kusama auctions, but there was a bit of a hiccup on our side with the Kusama auction. And what ended up happening is we're now on the current one that will be ending, I believe, on Thursday. So when that's available, we'll be going on to we'll own that slot. And what we're going to do at that point is we're going to test on that slot as much as we can, and then we'll provide an update whether we are going to be launching on Kusama right away or on Polkadot. The reason for that is because the Polkadot slot opens up on February 13th anyways, which is coming up in about 4 weeks, give or take. So we might just launch directly on Polkadot and skip the entire Kusama setup altogether. Are rewards automatically distributed? Yes, they would be. Will Nakamoto mainnet be dismissed or not? Nakamoto mainnet is sticking around. It's not going anywhere for the time being until we launch fully on Polkadot or Kusama. Nakamoto mainnet will continue running. So nothing will change there for the time being. What does timeline look like for stepping into Finney, and how does it go from here? Finney testing, tests approved, migration to Finney. Are UID increases on that timeline also or different? So yes, as mentioned, Katorx, the timeline basically is that we just launched what is basically a soft launch of Finney. We're going to see how it performs on Rococo. This Rococo has actually been hosted by us entirely. So if something goes down or entire thing breaks down, totally fine, not the end of the world. Then as we get closer to the Polkadot lease period, so our Polkadot lease begins February 13th. We're actually going to be going through a lot of evaluations, including on Kusama and on Polkadot, to kind of double check and make sure that we are going to be able to safely onboard everybody over, including their balances, their registrations, and kind of literally take a snapshot from the last block on Nakamoto onto the first block of Finney. Once we get that process down, we're going to have a much more concrete update for you on when we're going to do it. But so far, it looks rather promising that we should be able to hit our goal for Polkadot. And then as for your question about the UID increases on that timeline, I think Hans, you're probably more on that side than I am. So we'll give you an update on that as we go. Let's see. Will the 100 validator threshold go live in 2 days or end of Q1? So it'll be more like whenever we launch Polkadot, basically. So Finney does go live with Polkadot at end of Q1, not in 2 days. In 2 days, really, the only difference is we're just going to have a Kusama slot that we're going to start testing on, but that's about it. And obviously, we were not going to be moving anything over without informing the community. So once we have a more, once we know exactly how it's going to go, either it's going to be, sorry, Mr. Z, either it's going to be Polkadot or if it's going to be Kusama, we will let you know. But for now, as mentioned, nothing changes on Nakamoto. Nakamoto is going to stay the same. We are going to be either launching on Kusama or Polkadot, depending on how this Finney soft launch goes. So we'll be providing regular updates weekly, seeing how everything goes, and then we'll go from there. And yes, Swap Top, a lot of caffeine today, so apologies for being a little bit wired. Sikatsu is asking how to become a top 100 validator. Just take the command or what?
Sorry, say it again.
How to become a top 100 validator?
Just you need to have. It's just stake for now. Yeah. Right. So this is the aspect where people, if they want to become a validator, they need to collect Tau from people that are willing to delegate it to them. So that aspect is a little bit like representatives seeking votes. Yeah. Alan, next question.
Yep, I'm just kind of moving on. Let's see. Was asking, do you mean end of Q1, March 31st or February? Basically, we're aiming for mid-Feb, but unless something catastrophic happens, we're going to push. So we'll push to March only if something catastrophic happens. So ideally, fingers crossed, keep us in your prayers. We're aiming for mid-Feb. Can you address the issue raised by Elder J about open tensor team validators? We will address this in the coming week. To be frank with everybody, we have been heads down on this launch for a long time, and now we'll kind of go back to regular business as well as maintaining Finney. So stand by for that. Is there slashing if a node goes down? You know, even by slashing, Const?
I think it's really just the same way it's been all this time. Like if your node goes down, then and you're a miner, you'll be slashed by the validators, of course. If you're a validator that's had a bunch of stake pooled to you and you're performing badly because you've gone down, you can imagine that people will pull their stake. So it's important for validators to stay up online if they want to attract investment.
We mentioned that the idea is to incentivize validators to compete for delegations by optimizing to validate better than the competition. Will there be more information on how validators can be optimized / made competitive?
Yeah. So
yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, there's a number of ways that we want to introduce competition between these validators. I mean, and one of them is that we want validator pools that exist to showcase that they're using that 18% to actually benefit the network, right? So, the foundation is creating our key, and we're going to be, outputting a lot of work from the funds that we make, right? So, um, we would hope that people that invest in other pools expect the same performance from their validator pool, that they actually perform necessary duties into the network. So
Mhm.
that's what I meant by introducing a sort of a governance layer into Bittensor, and we're going to work hard to make sure that that's visual and transparent to people and how that works. Right now, it's just really okay. How much money is this validator making for me? Um, the the margins between validators is actually not that high. There won't be that big of a difference between validators. So it will be, minor percentage points as far as we can see. So we're not looking for people to say find a way to create better validators right now, or more looking for people to pool stake as a way of building organizations.
Cool. Mr. Z is asking, are we safe on Nakamoto until February or Polkadot launch? Yes, you are completely safe on Nakamoto unless otherwise stated. So that means that until we make an announcement about it, Nakamoto does not change. It's still the main net. Everything else, Finney is a test net. The one thing to keep in mind for everybody here, though, is that we will be winding down Nobunaga in the coming weeks. I will post up an announcement about it as we do it, but Nobunaga is becoming obsolete in the next couple of weeks. Nobunaga is a test net, so it doesn't make much of a difference. So to be a validator, you are an active manager, an engineer with a focused vision. How you want machine learning to be? Hang on, maybe I've had too much coffee. So to be a validator, you are an active manager and engineer with a focused vision of how you want machine learning to be. Basically, kind of, yeah. So as a validator, you have a bit of kind of a duty to make sure that the direction the Bittensor takes is the one that A, that your delegates agree with, and B, that is good for the network. You kind of have to walk that line in a sense.
Yeah.
How many registrations will be on Finney at live launch?
There will be 4096 registrations on the Nakamoto clone. So everybody stake their balances across the network, and their UIDs will be fixed and deep copied from the current Nakamoto. So it'll look exactly the same and feel exactly the same as Nakamoto. All the hyperparameters will be the same. It will be what you expect if nothing were to change, really. But Finney will also have other networks on that same chain, so that will be exciting. So there'll be other places for people to register. We may open it up immediately with a 16K registration network, so that in order to get into Nakamoto after the launch, you'll need to perform well on this registration network to do so. So like it will reduce the difficulty for registration on Nakamoto because people have to perform well in this registration network first.
Mm-hmm. Correct. If a validator is out from the top 100, would their key get deregistered too? Yes.
It it can, yeah, it can. It once it's out of the top 100, it falls under um, uh, the same deregistration issue as others. However, you don't immediately lose dividends. You still maintain your dividends while you have bonds. So basically, it's a slow decay of your dividends to zero, at which point you're still performing well and you're not going to be pruned from the network. So there's slight differences there in the way in which we're pruning nodes that people can read in the code, and I think you'll see this. It's much better than it was before in Nakamoto.
Mhm. Will you guys create an easier way to stake the validators, as in a user interface?
Yeah, this will be really easy because the way we built delegation is that you don't even need a hotkey, so you don't need to register anything. You just need a normal Bittensor wallet, and delegating could be just a single click on a normal wallet. So we could, for instance, and we intend to add the ability to delegate stake as something that's integrated right into our wallet. It's going to be on the website, so people will be able to just hold, if they're holding Tau, they can immediately delegate it and pull those tokens down whenever they need to.
Cool. Mr. Paco requires more clarification. Could we explain why POW is still necessary? Um, so Mr. Paco it's good to kind of give a bit of a history lesson here. When we first started Bittensor, the idea behind the proof of work was to be a form of civil resistance, to kind of keep people from deploying too many miners and kind of just going nuts and flooding the network. What it kind of evolved to as well as civil resistance is basically a form to say that you have the compute to participate in the network, right? You're not just coming in with some small Raspberry Pi. You're coming in with something that's powerful enough to actually run the models that are required to enable Bittensor to grow. Now, you were asked, somebody was asked, I think it was you, I'm not sure who it was, but somebody was asking earlier if proof of work will still be necessary once we go on Finney. And I explained that it is, but it's going to be less intense. So less intense meaning because it's going to be more UIDs and more subnetworks, it's going to be a little bit less crazy than it is now. You're not going to have like a 100 trillion difficulty anymore. But it's still necessary because it does still allow us to kind of have a form of civil resistance and a form to identify that this person is able to run the models that are required on this network. It seems like a good question, but will Tau get easier to buy on Finney launch, or is it staying peer-to-peer?
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. We can't really comment on this at all because this is no comment. Period. Let's see. Something again. Too big. I thought there was no plan. Heavy stacks. I'm pretty sure I answered your question earlier. You were asking. Original plan was to build their own validators, Jackson network, and limiting validators to 100. Are you also limiting validators to 100? Concept, if you answered this already. Just because there's so many questions, you can feel free to go through the recording later. Dex. When can we expect increasing of UIDs on Finney? More or less, of course, not exact date. I think Constantine mentioned this earlier. Was it upon launch or a little bit after launch? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, a bit after launch.
Yeah, a bit after launch. You can expect that increase. Do you have a breakdown of what we will use the 18% for exactly?
Yeah, so
go for that one.
I mean, what the foundation? Yeah, so I mean, what we intend to use the 18% for, I think that's a whole other conversation, but we can touch into it. So the foundation, like the developers that are behind the scenes building Bittensor right now, or committing most of the work into the repo, are funded by early day miners, primarily Ala and myself, who sold Tau in order to fund the nonprofit in Canada to hire engineers to continue developing on Bittensor. So in order to continue that organization moving forward, we wanted to build a mechanism for us to fund it, and without having to actually give up Tau directly. So to solve our own problem, we built delegation, really, so that there was a way for us to delegate stake into a shared pool and then use some of those funds over time to fund the development, to fund engineers researching and building on top of the protocol. We didn't want to just make that for us, right? Because that would just be centralized in the foundation. So we built it so that it was competitive, so that other people can do the same thing. So if there's other people in the community who want to build a pool and take 18% from that pool, so they can fund Bittensor and projects on top of Bittensor, we want to see that. We think that that's the best route forward for the whole system, and that's what we're hoping that people do, and that's where the 18% will go. So the 18% will hopefully go to funding these organizations and their ability to help us continue with our mission here.
Will there be an immunity period for those UIDs that would have been copied, so they don't get deregistered before incentive has been built?
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a big difficulty. The difficulty will be like 190 trillion, and it won't be possible for people to register, given that the network limit is right around 41 trillion. So the trickle in of new registrations will happen very slowly until the difficulty adjustment pulls it down, and then there'll be normal registration. So you'll have time. And depending on what number we pick, you'll have more or less time. We haven't really figured out exactly what that's going to be. If you're going to have a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we're also going to open up two networks likely at the same time. So Nakamoto will not be the only game in town.
Well said. Are we talking to the team from Talisman Wallet to implement their solution after doing Polkadot? Yes, chatter has started, but we haven't actually landed on anything yet. So I'd rather not kind of dig into more details there. When will sequence length be increased, and will Flash be integrated to reduce memory usage before the next increase?
All right, what flash attention?
Yeah, Flash attention.
Um, it's not on our priority right now. It's a maybe. Caro says maybe because it's not a high priority for us to get flash intention in board. If you know, and I've said this numerous times before, it's if you think that's a competitive advantage for your miners, I recommend implementing it faster than us because you know it's in our interest to make faster miners and that are better for the network, but in a way, it's more in your interest to do that faster than us. So we welcome open source contributions to the miners.
Mm-hmm. Will there be measures to stop large holders splitting across multiple validators and essentially occupying multiple of the 100 validator spots by a single entity?
I
So,
in the same way, in the same, yeah. So I mean that would really come down to how much tau you have. If you have all the tau, then you could do that. You could take all 100 slots. Yeah, exactly. And so
now,
that is an issue.
but in doing so, it's a little difficult, right? Because let's say that you do have, there's very few people that have enough tau to actually occupy the 100 slots and stay competitive in all the 100 slots, right? It's gonna be rather hard to keep that up. And after a while, it's gonna get harder and harder and harder as the network grows and as more tau is being accumulated.
Yeah. 100 is also just, we threw that number out. It's, on Nakamoto right now, we have over 200, right? So we don't intend to make it a small number like 100 anytime soon.
Just a start, really. What stops everyone from just delegating to Foundation or only one validator since it's the same at 18% across the board?
People are welcome to do that. I mean, I think the point is that when you delegate your stake, you want to make sure that those funds are being used to improve the network, and people should do the due diligence about who they're staking to.
Correct.
You know,
you can always take somebody with a lot of tau, and that's perfectly fine. But at the end of the day, if that tau is not being used to improve the network, then really it's kind of a self-defeating prophecy, right? So this is also kind of an incentive mechanism for some teams to join Bittensor as well and start developing on it, and kind of be funded to do that too. So it's kind of incentivizing open source development as well. What are your thoughts as a restriction as a service where people sell huge compute for getting hotkeys registered quickly? I mean, it's a rather interesting business, but we haven't really dug into it yet.
what's the question? The question is whether or not we've looked into the
So,
business.
what are your thoughts on restriction as a service? Yeah, where people sell huge compute for
Yeah.
getting hotkeys registered quickly.
You can do it.
Been done. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's been done, but you can do it, and it's something that the protocol allows because you can make the registration call from a key that is not the one that's being registered. So you don't even need to give them the hotkeys in order to do that registration, and that's actually built right into the base layer. If you want to use an extra service, I mean, we were watching that pretty close.
On Finney, we'll have the same transfer fee of 0.125.
No,
That's
it's
still being
down.
looked into. Yeah,
No,
it's
it's
taken down,
dropped.
but do we
It's
have an
dropped by
exact number?
it's dropped by 100-fold. Yeah, it's 100-fold smaller. Oh.
Okay, sounds good. Cool, that's even better. Did you know when ledger compatibility will be? We haven't looked into that quite yet, but probably will be sometime in Q3, Q4, I'd say.
Maybe even sooner. Like Vu might be on the call, but he was saying that we may even have the integration now. If you do a little bit of wiggling around with the Polkadot.js uh, extension, which can hold our tokens, Ledger works directly with that, I believe. Yeah, but I mean, we're not working on Ledger integration directly. Yeah, it's a great idea.
It's yeah, give it some time. 18% will go to the delegator you stake with, right? So for someone, if somebody
Yes.
stakes with Mike, his node, then 18% goes to Mike or goes to the foundation. It goes to Mike. So if you
No, inverse. 18% goes to the validator. So the
yes,
foundation. Yeah.
so that's what that was a question, right? It's like if somebody stakes with Mike on his node.
Okay.
So yeah, so unless you're staking with the foundation, it won't go to the foundation, basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to delegate stake to the foundation miner.
Yeah.
In order for the foundation to take the 18% stake. The 18% is for the delegator. Sorry, it's for the validator. So the validator is
Yep.
exactly.
So just to confirm, was the 800, 100 an example or the plan limit? It's an initial limit, I think, is the best way to describe. More than anything, it's not something that is going to be a hard limit, and it's not something that's just going to be we're stuck with. It's just something that we've thrown out there as a start. How many different Bittensor Foundation validators are there to choose from at launch or initial competition? We don't have a number on that yet. We will share that with you as soon as we do, and as soon as we start moving forward on the launch itself. We'll have all those details for you. As integration as possible. Did you use it already? Yes. Yeah, I think we're caught up on questions so far. Folks, for anybody, well, I guess everybody's here, but if there's anyone asking you if they weren't part of this chat, feel free to let them know that we're going to be uploading the video as well as the slides in the next 24 hours.
Awesome.
Okay, Lamo is asking again, when will the next sequence length increase be?
No.
After launch on Polkadot or before?
Nothing planned.
Yeah, nothing planned on sequence length increases.
We're gonna wait for basically the network to reach an equilibrium before we start hitting with increases like that. We might also create sub networks that have, we can and we will actually create sub networks that have different sequence lengths, etc. So there'll be some places where you don't need sequence length and others you do, and people can choose to work between those consensus mechanisms.
Yep. Yes. Saber, they will definitely have fixed dates numbers for the validators. Fairly decent time ahead because we still have a little bit of time before launch in Feb if we do that, and we still have quite a bit of testing to do on Finney with you guys as well. So please use the hell out of Finney, run it to the ground. We want to see what happens because we want this Polkadot launch to be as smooth as it can be. Hence the soft launch today.
Is anybody registered?
Haven't seen anyone yet.
Let's see.
Quack's registered already. Dope. Caliori says he can't use Metagraph or Finney.
Okay, well, we'll get into technical. No, some people are registering. I'm actually seeing 6 on Network 0, so that's great. So things are off, and people are registering. That's awesome.
See how we do.
Yeah. Okay, so there's still more questions coming here. Could we make a network Finney channel? Yes, absolutely we can. Let's do that right after this call. My understanding is that Finney will be on Polkadot or Kusama, not both. Is there any scenario where there will be 2 economic Bittensor networks running simultaneously, one on Kusama and one within the more stable code base on Polkadot? No plans to. We don't want to have 2 incentivized networks. We think that would just complex things. and complexify things. So we're just going to keep it pretty simple.
We
And
will if we do launch in the
um,
future on Kusama and Polkadot, the Kusama one will put in space station. It'll be similar to what Finney is now.
yeah, yeah. Possibly we do that. Yeah.
Yeah, if we go that direction.
Cool.
Cool. Right on time again.
Right on time. Fantastic. Is that, I think, are the questions flowing in, or is that it? I think maybe we should end the call.
I think we're good. We're good to end it. Jacqueline and I will work on the video, get it done, and upload it to you guys by tomorrow, ideally. We should be good to go.
Fantastic. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, really glad to have everyone on the call. Really huge call today. Very exciting time. And
Biggest call so far.
yeah, and we'll see you all around.
See you later.